So I just want to start by saying thank you guys for coming and welcome to the Shades of Africa. In my opinion, this is the most important group because we can't be talking about our young people and not hear their voices in this. And I just really appreciate you taking out your time because it just shows that it's really important to you. But before we go further, I just want to start off by asking each of you to introduce yourself to the audience. So just say your name, country you're from, whether you're born in Canada or you immigrated here and your age, and what you're currently doing right now.
So my name is Chynna. I'm 20 years old. I was born in the UK. In the UK, football. Background wise, my mother's side is degree in education. I'm currently a student at NYU, studying in athletic therapy.
My name's Dami. I'm 19. I'm originally Nigerian. I immigrated to Canada in 2014, and I'm currently in my third year of an economics degree at the UC.
So my name's Maria. I'm currently 19. I immigrated to Canada from Sudan in 2003, and I grew up here ever since. And I'm currently starting my engineering degree at UFC.
Hello, my name is Edmond. I'm Ghanaian. I migrated here in 2001 when I was 1 year old. I'm currently 19. I trade in the foreign exchange market and on course to learn Canadian.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Well, I'm just going to really jump in it and really ask you, as a young person, as a black young person, have you ever experienced any form of discrimination or racism, micro and macro, in during your time in Canada?
Yes, I have, mainly in schools and in my work because I work part-time at Sport Check, and I've seen the brunt of it there in customer service with anything because there was a time I was helping a customer once. It was a family. They were a lovely family and all that. I could tell that they were just having a bad day because their daughter was about 4 years old and all that. And I was getting out shoes, so I gave it to her. And then she proceeded to say thanks and then said the N word with the ER. So originally I was shocked because I'm like, she's 4 years old and all that. But I didn't necessarily take it upon her to like look down on her, but I asked her mom, I'm like, could you just ask her to refrain from saying that? And the reaction I got from her mom is what made me realize, well, wow, these aren't the things that like Canada isn't all great and everything. There's also issues here. Because her mom said to me, and I quote, if she said this, you probably deserved it. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I have experienced it and all in its biggest forms and in smallest forms, whether it's in school from teachers that aren't just necessarily, because I had a teacher that was very favorited. He liked favoriting people and all that. He was against people of colors as well as males as well, but mainly people of color. I could tell because it wasn't even just me personally. It was someone I knew that was a top-notch student and all that, and every other class was getting 90s and all. And he said, even to his mom, at the parent-teacher interviews, just because of the skin of your color, that you wouldn't get anywhere. There was successful action reprimanded against him, thankfully, but I've seen it and it's burnt force against myself and others and in the smallest reactions. So yeah.
Yeah, basically in the same environments that he has, so education and work, because that's where you are primarily. So in grade 10, I kind of faced the same thing. I had a new teacher. I didn't think much of it. We switched classes. Well, I moved the way my junior high transferred me over to high schools. There was a lot of it was very messy, and so I wasn't actually in the school I was designated at, and I clearly was not supposed to be there. It's not my designated, nor did I apply for it, and so I eventually got transferred over back to my designated, which was Forest Lawn. And in being transferred back over, they couldn't access my grades, so they didn't really know where to place me. Primarily, like, -1, -2. What do we do? And I clearly wanted -1 because universities, you need it. and I also know I can do it. And my guidance counselor was very against it. Like, he wouldn't let me just be in it. And it got to the point where eventually I got placed in my -2 classes. I took the general test to see where you're supposed to be placed, and all my teachers were very confused why I was going to be put in -2. So within the class, I got put in -1 in a -2 classroom because my teachers were aware you're not supposed to be here, but there was something with the guidance counselor, and because I didn't have parental backing, I didn't have anyone outside of the school. It's very hard to be 14 years old and going against a grown adult. So that was that, and then in my studies class, particularly, that's when we had the transferring of teachers partway through, and in having that, there was a lot of what Dami kind of pointed to, which is that you really shouldn't be here. There was a lot of testing of my knowledge rather than teaching, in a way that didn't make sense because you are the instructor. You're supposed to know more. So it was very frustrating, and it was very weird for me because in my educational journey, in my high school anyway, I eventually moved over to Western, and even though Western is the racial demographic is predominantly white, I didn't face as much discrimination there, and that was very weird considering that the racial demographic of Forest is primarily people of color. So that was really interesting to know. And then the fact that I had most of my, I guess, racist experience from my teachers were at Forest. And so in regards to the customer service point of view, I've actually never dealt with anything from customers, thankfully, because I can get very ugly, as Dami pointed. But I have had it from other coworkers or managers where you're singled out in a manner that doesn't really make sense, held to a standard way higher, and not held as in you're going to get promotional backing. It's just more so, I guess, for reprimanding more than anything. So that's really frustrating to deal with. But yeah.
And you know what? You brought up an important point that I want to make clear. When we talk about racism, it's just not a black and white thing. It's actually quite frustrating when you face racism from people of color, like you said. There's Indians, there's Asians, and it's actually even more frustrating. And Dr. Francis spoke on that earlier about the color coding, how we tend to be at the bottom of that even certain colors think they are more important or higher than, and which is really sad. So actually, I'm glad you brought that point up.
Yeah, I definitely have. I feel like being a black male in this society, I realized at a young age that there's stuff like this around us all the time. A good example that I could give is my dad at one point banned me from wearing sweaters. He refused to get sweaters from me because as a black male just walking across the street with just a hoodie on, that could get you in trouble. Just because of misidentity or something. And it's just the little stuff like that. I want to add on to what everybody said, your workplace, in school. I've been through a lot, but I feel like at a younger age, I didn't really understand it. But the more you get older, you're more oh, okay, people actually fear me. But you don't know the reason why people fear me.
And it's really sad because you brought up the fact that your dad wouldn't even buy you sweaters. And it's funny because it brings me back to a conversation I feel like I had to have with my son when the George Floyd incident happened and it was all over the news. And I just feel like as a community, as black people, we unconsciously internalize things and sort of unconsciously accept certain things. We know already, I know already that discrimination and my son will be at a disadvantage as a black boy. So I'm already preparing him for that. Yeah. But that means I've accepted certain discrimination. Oh, well, that's just our lot. So, but just get used to it. But really, it shouldn't be. And so that's why we're having these conversations, because at a young age, your dad had to prepare you for the discrimination you're going to face just for the color of your skin. and this shouldn't continue, and that's the hope, that as we keep talking, that things will change. But I'm so glad that you brought that up. I really thank you for that point.
I wouldn't say I faced as much in school. There were some incidents in school where I did get in trouble one time in school, and so I was sent like to the principal's office, and so the principal came to talk to me. I was young. This was like elementary, like my ending years of elementary school, and she was just telling me, she was like, "You're so malicious. You're so evil." And I was just like, I can't really remember exactly what I had done. I know it wasn't that bad, but I was just like, why? Why would you tell me that I'm so evil, you know? And it's the only incident I really remember from school. Definitely more in the workplace. I worked at Starbucks for a while, and definitely saw a lot of incidents there. For one was my coworker. He was also a person of color. You know, as bartenders, we would make the drinks, serve the drink out to the customer. And so there was one customer, a white male, who refused to take a drink from him. He didn't want his drink made by the person of color. He didn't want to take the drink. And so in that incident, you know, the white coworker kind of just made the drink, just kind of brushed off, made the drink and gave it to him. And in that incident, I just felt like a lack of support in that area, because it kind of just, in that case, he kind of just accepted the behavior and just kind of like, oh, well, okay, you know, well, I'll just make the drink because I can, because I'm white, you know. And even though it didn't happen directly to me, obviously I was there, and, you know, just kind of talking to the guy after, and, you know, he kind of brushed off as, you know, well, it is like, it's what happens. And it was sad, because it was like, you shouldn't just accept that, because that's not okay, you know, and that behavior shouldn't be tolerated also by other coworkers who were there. You know, I felt like, you know, they could have refused the guy to even be able to make an order, or send him out the store, just to show that support, you know, with what is right and what's wrong. Also, one day I was working as in the cashier area. Older white male came up to me, and he was like, the first thing he said to me, he was like, where did you immigrate from? And I was just like, why is that the first thing you say to me? You know, is this trying to say that, oh, obviously I don't belong from here, you know, where did I possibly come from? So I'm kind of taken back by that comment. You know, obviously you can kind of ask the same question back, you know, because it's Canada, you know who kind of lived here first. So it just felt, I was taken back by that question.
Is when you talk about people not saying things, it's like they're giving their consent. Like we're saying now that silence is no longer an option, whether you're white, black. You know, if you see something that's not right, you know, you should step up and talk about it. And I guess that's what we're doing today. But I wanted to roll on and say, so what are the challenges that you believe that young people face today? What are the major challenges there?
In regards to, I guess, the silence statement, if you are black and you do point out racial disparities or discrimination, it's, oh, you're playing the race card. That's cute. You know, it gets brushed off. It's almost like that's when, no offense, you as a white person of color, you know, need to stand up, because I say it, regardless of how valid it may be, it will get brushed off, and it won't be taken as seriously as someone who is white, you know, and that it sucks, but that's just also the reality of it. And the one thing that I wanted to point out, because people in Canada are watching this, one, if anywhere that there's a place where prejudice can exist, it will. You know, because prejudice belongs in the terms of opinions and minds, and that's why you have things like, because I relate to Edmond, where it's like my mom was also the same way, and she also she internalized the racism a lot more harshly. and didn't want me to have other black friends because, you know, black people in a group who it's terrible, but people do really, you know. And so to protect me from the stereotypes and biases and the treatment that can come with that, she didn't want me to have other black friends. And so it was always the black person in my group, you know? And it was little things like that. And the weird part about prejudice is the fact that people don't really realize they have it. And if they do, they don't really, give it up when it's like for a black person. If it's someone who's like from an Asian descent, who's Chinese, and you know, with the whole COVID case, when it first broke out, there was a lot of discrimination towards people from that ethnic background, and people called it out. Like, they didn't stand for it. But when it comes to someone who's black, there's more tolerance, you know? So that's just my little 2 cents on the silence thing, being a black person and trying to speak out and be heard.
I would like to add on to what she said, and you said something before that really like sparked something in my brain about how like us as a black community, we kind of accept certain stuff, and I feel like it's true because like sometimes we don't want to voice out, we just kind of accept it. And being a black male, like at a young age, I was being told like, you know, you should be used to this type of stuff. And like, not even coming from just other people, but even sometimes from your parents, because they don't want you to go outside and react to somebody like forcing you to like react a certain way.
And escalating the situation, which would hurt you, so, unfortunately.
Yeah, like as a young black male, like my dad was telling me, like if anybody provokes you, like walk away, like type of stuff like that. And I feel like with that, there's never going to be change because this is the world that we live in, and I feel like everybody should have a voice and everybody should voice out how they feel. And it's not fair that some people just have to take it. Because I feel like us as a black community, we're always on the front, like we're always standing up for everybody, whether it's the Asian race, like Muslims, like not Muslims because that's a religion, but like the Arabs, Middle Eastern people. But I feel like when it comes to us, nobody's really ever standing up for us.
I'm so glad you said that, because with all the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that, it's not, and I keep saying it and I'll keep saying it again, it's not that we want special treatment, we just want equal treatment. Like, we just want fair treatment. Treat us the same way everybody else will be treated. And it is unfair. It is unfair that we have to accept certain things. It is unfair that I or your parents would have to have conversations with you guys at a young age, which I can almost guarantee you my white counterparts may never have to talk to their kids about that, you know? So it's unfair that we have to accept it. And right now we're saying, we're not going to accept it anymore. That actually things need to change.
Maria and Edmond couldn't have said it better themselves. Like with the if prejudice can exist somewhere, it will. I can't agree with that anymore. And then Edmond saying about the hoodie things, till this day, even at like how old I am and all that, there's certain things that my mom will still warn me about, to saying like, oh, don't say LA. If there's someone, just walk away. With me, my mom and dad told me they were against people wearing ripped jeans because they said that would easily make you like seem affiliation or such, and they barred me away from that, as well as they wanted me not to have too many black friends and all, because I went to a high school downtown, St. Mary's, which is just like not too far away from Western, and it's predominantly black. I won't lie, my graduating class was predominantly black. And there was a lot of fear for my parents, not out of hurt, but just out of like consciousness that because with them, when they were young, with large groups of black people, it's easy to do that. And they've seen, and I understand now why they were saying that, because I was under the interpretation, this is Canada, it can't be that bad, not as bad as the States and all. But this isn't true and all that. And with Maria saying that, if there's disparity, that there'll always be the race card and all that, I agree with that. And if I could point out, it's just lack of support. Because no matter how much you say or whatever you bring up, there's not always going to be that support you need and all that. Like, I've seen it happen for myself as an athlete. I've seen it happen to coworkers and all that. There's always, you'll have support in certain issues, but you won't have the amount of support you need because there will always be people afraid to speak up on a topic because they're afraid to hurt feelings. And I'm not saying that necessarily is a bad thing, but I'm saying that sometimes you have to hurt feelings in order for people to understand things. Because we, as Edmond, Anne Marie, and yourself said, shouldn't have to have a higher level of tolerance on something that shouldn't be tolerated at all. That's my honest opinion on that, at least. But yeah, no, Edmond and Maria really covered all the bases. There's not much I can add on besides just lack of support from all. But yeah,
we work with young people and sometimes higher risk young people that are, and the reason why we last year, and Maria was involved last year, where we did a conference because we knew that the black boys were predominantly in the criminal justice system and it was unfairly represented. And like you said, the lack of support sometimes can cause, and I'm not making an excuse for anyone that does crime. I feel like that if you do the crime, you're going to face the consequences. But I do feel like certain things need to be taken into consideration. The frustration, like you guys, I'm going to go to resilience soon because you're resilient and you'll keep going. But there's some young people that will say, what's the point then? If I'm not going to get promoted, if I'm not even going to be looked at, then I need to survive. So sometimes I will use my survival skills in maybe not a so good way, but I'm still trying to make what I'm trying to make because certain opportunities are not given to me. I've heard young people say that they're academically smart, but school's pushing them towards basketball because they're tall, athletic, and and it's like you're limiting my chances, and because of your own biases, now you're trying to dictate the path of my life. And that's where I feel like a lot of our young black boys are frustrated about, where they feel like, what is the point? Like, what's the point in even trying?
So I'm both black and a woman. And so I've noticed that when I have instances of sexism, primarily if it comes from another guy, I'll be super blunt, people will honestly take it way more into consideration. There's, what do we do? How can we help? What's the issue? How do we mitigate it? It's a solution-based response, right? But the second anything happens in regards to my race, it's, are you sure? Maybe you didn't look at the situation properly. Did you maybe consider, okay, well, what did you do? It's a lot of the dismissive, I don't ever want to accept that it may be race, because if I have to, then it's like I have to then confront my own biases, and that's mad uncomfortable. So
yeah, like Dami said, I think Maria and Edmond definitely said it very well with regards to also being like silenced, especially also coming from like a black woman perspective and kind of being hit with the stereotype of like the angry black woman, anytime kind of wanting to speak out on like situations, you're kind of just, slapped with that title, oh, she's just an angry black woman, and also not really trying to divert from like the topic, but I think also just growing up black, also regarding media and also just like skin and what is viewed as, know beauty in the eyes of the world. You don't, now they're kind of starting more to incorporate, obviously, more black kind of lead stars and this and that. Could kind of see more of more people of you like in the media and stuff, but definitely one of the things growing up is also valuing your skin, because in this world it can kind of like tear you down and make you also view your skin as a bad thing, as how everyone else views it. You kind of start to let, I don't know how to say it, but what they're saying, how they're viewing you, you start to view yourself like that as well. Well, hey, I'm black, I have a disadvantage, you know. You start to see your skin as now a barrier for yourself. Um, Even just walking into an interview for a job and everyone else is white, they're interviewing you, instantly feel I have a disadvantage here, you know, and you try to act as white as possible, you know, to kind of dim down that blackness to try to seem more admirable to your
So
employers.
you're basically talking about the added components that we carry, like from even slavery time. We're talking about the color of your skin. The lighter you are, you worked in the homes. The darker you are, you worked out in the fields. And that same mentality that's carried here, that young people face, and even when you're talking about skin color being a barrier, even names, I've heard that, you know, my name's very, as you see it, is very African, and a lot of people can't pronounce it, and that could be a barrier. I've wondered if that's a barrier for me even
They can
getting
pronounce
to an interview.
Chbosky. They can try.
And I think they
Yeah,
need to start
yeah.
trying. Yeah, but a lot of people, you'd be surprised, have changed their names to more, you know, English sort of name, John, Paul, just so that they can, it will reduce those barriers.
With the jobs and interviews, and even at my current job and all that, it took a while for them to pronounce my name. I had to tell them it's Danny with an M because whenever I say it's Dami, it's so out of their vocabulary. They're like Demi, and I'm like, it's just that. But the minute I say Danny, they can pronounce perfectly fine. It's like I completely get that with names and all that. That some names that they're not used to will instantly just make them uncomfortable. Be like, I don't know how to pronounce and all that, even though some of the easiest names in the world. Edmond, I know.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And actually, I mean, we're talking about all these issues, but we're also we're here for a reason, and we're here to help them because they're watching, because they want to seek our opinion. So, especially as young people, what do you think? Like, especially you spoke about education, you spoke about work, you spoke about different, and even police. I'm disappointed that someone wasn't here because he spoke of one time when he got, there was a group of them, black boys and one white boy, and the police stopped them, and the police thought the white guy was lost. And he was just like, why would he just order?
Oh
And I was
my!
just like, see, but these are the unconscious or
Oh my!
biases that they come with, and already the white person's a victim rather than, you know, to be a whole.
They're the collective.
So it's things that are continuous that we see, but
That's kind of hilarious. I'm so sorry.
no, that's
I
okay.
apologize, but I find that humorous as well.
It is, but imagine you being, just flip the script. If there was a crime or something that happened and you're with white kids and you're the only black kid, how uneasy would you feel when police come? Because Dami, you know what I mean? You've already felt it.
No, I went overseas. Not overseas. Sorry, I went to another province. We were in Saskatchewan with our team once, and we were just out getting food. And my team was predominantly white. There was 2 black people, myself included, and all that. So we go to a convenience store, and the thing is, maybe 2 blocks down, someone had taken shoplifted from a convenience store and all that. So police were looking. So police sees our entire team, and it's not like we didn't all look different. We all had the same jacket on. We all kind of looked like a team, and everyone was laughing. They stop us, and they point at me and my teammate said, "Can we talk to you two? Because you guys matched the description or something." And I'm just like, I paused and I'm like, "What do you mean? I was in this story the entire time." So they continued to ask questions, and eventually my coach came. And my coach, he was black as well, stood up and he said that you can't be doing these things and all that. And I looked at the description, and I kid you not, the description was young age, tall, black, wearing a green jacket. Now, all due respect, do you know how many people in Saskatchewan alone own green and are tall and black and young? And you're telling me magically, just because I was at a convenience store 2 blocks down, that this is me? So they asked me, and like, "Oh, we apologize for that, blah blah," and I just say, I just brushed it off and all that, because the thing is, my mom always told me and all that, with police and all that, you have to choose your words very carefully, because no matter how right you are, whether you want to make them aware or make a point there's always a level of caution you have to take because you never know what can happen.
Having that point, though, what do you think police need to do better when it comes to approaching young people?
The approach itself should be an approach of instantly trying to figure out something, but asking questions first and being aware. Because I feel police better off the best way in order to understand someone to have a conversation. Because police aren't having conversations; they're rather just trying to find out information and asking for orders. It's not necessarily having that same level of respect between one another. I think that they need to educate themselves on certain things because young people are going to be scared. They're young. They're not exposed to certain things in the world and all that. So you can't use the same approach and demeanor you'd use to someone that's mature to a young person. And the reality is, I hate to say it, but in Canada, we've seen that happen to people of our age. And it sucks because this is the time where, especially with all of these predominant issues, that police could take the time and other departments and fields could take the time to educate themselves on these issues and educate themselves like how can we do this better, what can we do to further understand this and all that. So it's a matter of education and being aware of the situation itself, as well as understanding that there's other ways to de-escalate a situation rather than screaming and taking the harsh approach.
Yeah.
So my main thing is rather around is around the educating of police officers to better understand like biasness, disparity, and really just overall prejudice and all that. Saying that rather than judge someone on an appearance, find out who they are first and choose to judge them based off that. Do not judge someone based off a cover. Like people always say, never judge a book by its cover, but it's the reality that it needs to actually become a reality for this to happen.
Oh yeah. So I agree with what Dami said, but I personally don't think it's rocket science. You as a police officer, you already know that I'm afraid of you. So your approach coming to me, if you're already yelling, which you wouldn't do if it was another colored person, you've already engaged, and I have nothing else to do but react. You provoked me to react, and after I react, now you actually got me where you want me. And I feel like that's where a lot of the black community, we try and teach the younger people, like, you have to be cautious of what you say and like the way you act around them, because like any small thing it could escalate so quick. And I feel like one big challenge too is people don't see us for who we are. They just see, oh, he has earrings. Oh, yeah, he's a thug. And that's basically what it is. I don't think it's rocket science that if you feel like somebody has done something and you are approaching them as a police officer, you speak to them in a respectful manner. But if the first thing you do is come and grab me and say, you match the description, now I'm going to be forced to react.
Yeah.
And there might be some profanity that comes out of my mouth because it's like, why are you trying to accuse me when I haven't done anything?
I want to touch a point that Dami pointed upon, which is the fact that people tend to see black children older than they actually are. Because, you know, they may be taller for their age, but whatever. But my thing is, they're mentally that age. They are emotionally that age. And although they may be taller than you or bigger than you, that doesn't exempt them from being a kid.
Yes.
And so you need to keep that in mind, I guess, when dealing with youth, mind you, just because they are taller doesn't mean that they're mature. So I think that's another thing. And it's like a hard prejudice to get by, because I've seen it where I'm like, oh, I thought that kid was older. He's not, you know? So then it's like, well, now I have to change my approach and how I talk to them. So I think that's something that they should consider. Sorry, I'm very logical in the sense of, okay, if you put me in dash one and I fail out of it, now we know I can't do dash one. You know what I mean? And we move forward with our lives. But it was met with resistance. So in that instance, on my end, unfortunately, that's when one or two things, I guess, can happen. If my teachers, noticed a consistent pattern across all the board in my classes, should have probably said something, And at one point, I actually did end up saying something to my principal about another teacher in my English class because we were switched, and she was very discriminatory towards one of my other classmates. Who me and my friend, both from Sudan, we both noticed this. She was darker than us, but she was like really. Like the way the situation escalated consistently didn't make sense, especially when she was met with the same situation from like literally my white best friend. Like my friend came in 15 minutes late, McDonald's on the phone, then asked to charge her phone, which is what the policy was, her classroom policy was against. And when it came to my white friend, mind you, she's my best friend. There was no issues to charge her phone. There was no reprimanding for being in 15 minutes late with McDonald's on nothing, It was just met with, can you please be more respectful? But when it came to the girl she was just black. What else can I say, right? She was black. And all she wanted to do was charge her phone. And so she quietly, like literally quietly charged the phone right beside her. There was an outlet. Teacher escalated it to the point where the principal had to get involved. And that happened repeatedly, and it didn't make sense because I'm like, why are you treating this situation a lot more harshly to a point where a consequence on paper and file needs to be reported for something that there was no 15 minutes late, there was no McDonald's, there was nothing. And I noticed that, and so I went and spoke to the principal because I'm like, it didn't just happen one time. This was like a consistent thing, and also the teacher wasn't a very nice person on top of it. Like, duh. Usually, like, I wouldn't expect you to be a very nice person if you're going to have those kinds of like discrimination. I'll be super blunt, and just so that they're aware and that there could be action taken, just because like anyone who is going to be watching this later wants. I did go to the school board, and it was dismissed. So the simplest thing is to literally listen. As a kid, as a child, it's not fun to go up against authority. It's literally not. So when I go talk to a principal, I'm not saying it because I want reprimanding for the teacher. I literally just want it so that way next time that happens, the proper responses are met given both situations.
I think just being more supportive in situations, and more feeling that we're not fighting these issues alone, but it's everyone fighting the same issue. It's not black people against racism, it's everyone against racism. I think it's that lack of support that makes it easier to just give up because it's just like, what's the point in fighting this anyways? We're not getting anywhere with this. So I think it's just more supporting, what's right at the end of the day. It's not like we're asking for special treatment, we're just asking to be treated like everyone else. And I feel like that's the misinterpretation, is that, it's like we're asking to be treated better. Yes, we are asked to be treated better, but treated better in the sense of just being treated equally.
So obviously all of you guys are here for a reason. Why do you think this conference is important, number one? And what is the one thing you would want the audience to take away from this conversation?
I think it's good just to give that platform just to be heard and just to speak out and, not be silent. So I think this is great, just for a chance for Black youths to say their piece, not being shut down and just actually being listened to. And I think that's what we mainly want, just to, have what we're saying being heard and actually taken in and changes being made.
I don't know a better way to put it, but I feel like I'm glad that we got to break some silence, but I think what I would like people to actually take from this is the fact that we are actually voicing out right now, and you can see how uncomfortable everybody is. Like, there's a lot of stories that I held back on. There's a lot of information that I held back on. And it just goes to show you that, like, myself, and I know I'm probably not the only person, like, in the Black community, or even the Arabs, or so-and-so. Like, it's like, you feel like you can never really get what you really have to get off your chest. because it's like you don't know who's watching. Like this could affect anything, right? And that is, having that mindset is not normal. But this is the life that we live in. Like me being a black male, this is what I have to do. I own my own business. I'm a co-founder of IMT, and whatever I say here could be used against me, could not. But this is the life that we live in. Even voicing out, you still have to be cautious about what you say.
I'm silent because I'm a parent and it really hurts me. I think you can hurt me, but when it comes to my children is another level. And I feel like as a parent watching and hearing from young people, it really saddens me that that is the weight you carry. And it's really important for us to voice this, because I hope, and this is my deep hope, that later down the line when you start to have children, you won't have to prepare them as much as we have to do, you guys. I'm hoping that when you have grandchildren, as the time goes on, it gets better than our days or our grandfather's day or great grandfather's days, and that is the hope. So I really appreciate you guys' voice. I mean, like, the only way this can be used against you is in a positive light. The fact that there's some black, young, smart people coming up and talking about these issues, it touches our hearts, because is a weight we carry every day that we just want to share with people. So thank you for sharing, Edmond. I really appreciate that, and I hope they take away that message.
Like both Edmond and Chynna said, having a platform and the fact that people are finally voicing out, that people should take away from this, that you should never be afraid to voice out or show yourselves or tell your story and all that. Everyone deserves to hear out your story and all, because this is the time that everyone should understand. As well, having this platform should inspire people to say, this is a time to start educating, whether it's just like small, just telling your friends certain things or helping them understand what's going on and all that, so be it. But this is a time to continue to voice out and use, because everyone can make their own platform. This is the time to have your own platform to understand and explain these issues and voice out, and just not be afraid to be you and all that. Like you said, like later on and all that, I want to, as well as I would assume most of us would want to not have to worry about the same issues if we have kids, or once we have, because I have nephews and nieces that are small. They're like 3 or 4 years old. I want them when they grow up to not have to experience the same things that we did, that things to be better. So by having these things, I hope that people watching, as well as us, we take things away to help further and improve ourselves and help improve other things. So in the long run, that changes are made, and we just trying to figure out the best way to put it. Then in the long run, that we wouldn't have to face these issues again, because we shouldn't have to at all. But now is the time that we're just voicing it out. But yeah.
I just wanted to touch on what Edmond said, which is like how uncomfortable this is on the other end, despite how it may not come across maybe to anyone who's watching. But I guess the one silver lining is there's no growth in comfort. Right? So if you have the uncomfortable conversations, yeah, it will trudge up really uncomfortable, like on our end and on the other end, it will. But it will also help in the long run. And yeah, I think that's why these conversations are necessary if we want the better future for everyone, right? I guess if you want to look at it from a finance or corporation or just doing good in general, it requires having good ideas. Good ideas come from diverse backgrounds and experiences. You only get that because people are different and what they experience. So that's why you'd want that's why you want it. It's because then it helps everyone else become better. So
no, and I agree. We are here to just make sure that everything gets better, systems get better, individuals get better, and just the awareness is everything. But I just want to leave it in a note that I see you guys as kings and queens, and I encourage you guys to keep shining. Keep doing what you're doing. I stand in awe of you guys, because I doubt if I was as eloquent as you guys when I was that age. But the way you spoke and the way you've portrayed yourself has also shown that we're not bad people. We're human beings. We're not all criminals. We're not all angry black women. We're not all, we actually are just human beings trying to get on. Can we just live? Can we all just live? And that's just basically it. It's simple as that, though. Can we all just live? Can we just walk down the street and be okay? Can we just? So I really appreciate you guys. I salute you guys. And like I say, I feel like you lot are the VIP of the show. I think we need to hear from you because you are our future generation. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to hearing the questions.